What is up? Welcome to another episode of Bitches Love Sports. I'm Jazz Monet, your host. And yeah, it's been a day. It is Friday. I'm so glad it's Friday. It's been a long week. I've been under the weather. It's just been a hell of a week as far as interacting with fans on Twitter slash X slash whatever the hell you want to call it. So yeah, here we are. Uh, Thanks to everybody who showed up. Not only am I later than I normally start for these things, but I'm even late compared to when I wanted to start. But if you've been watching the past couple weeks, you know I've had hella technical difficulties, and that's pretty much what happened today. Like about 4:55, I had to start my laptop twice. Um, it's working right now. Hopefully, hopefully it stays on. So here we are. So yeah, life has been doing its thing. My laptop's doing its thing. It's been a while since I wore my hair in this style, so my hair is doing its thing. If it goes a little crazy during the broadcast, I apologize in advance because like I couldn't even, it's been so long since I wore my hair like this, I couldn't even remember what products I normally use. So I was just like, all right, whatever. We're just gonna go for it and hope for the best. And whatever doesn't go well, we'll do better next week. It's like, okay, so it's Friday the 13th, and there's an annular eclipse in like less than 24 hours. So maybe it's not even me. Maybe it's not me fucking up. Maybe the universe is just trying to balance and I'm just catching the brunt of all this shit. Anyway, as usual, we're going to talk about the Buffs. We're going to talk about the Cowboys. The Colorado Buffaloes actually play tonight, so I didn't want to go too late. Yes, Martin, I agree. The laptop better lock in. I needed to work right today. But yeah, I didn't want to start too late. I wanted to make sure that I'm done in time to catch the Buffaloes and relax and get food and stuff before then. So we'll hop right into it. I don't have a lot to say with shout outs and call outs because, as you just heard, I've been dealing with a lot this week. So, pretty much outside of the Colorado Buffaloes and the Dallas Cowboys, the only thing I've been paying attention to is the WNBA Finals. And honestly, there's not even a lot to say there. The Las Vegas Aces are up 2 games to none in a best of five. They go to New York on Sunday. And if they win that game, then they will be repeat champions. Um, and like, I really wish I could break it down for you and stuff, but like, for one, like, y'all know I be like trying to like get the hang of like breaking down football and whatever. I'm even like less adept at basketball, so it's like I like watching it, but there was nothing that really stood out in terms of like, okay, this made the difference in the game. In game one, things were even for a while, and then the Las Vegas Aces like pulled away. In game two, they just showed up and dominated. It like wasn't even I don't want to say it wasn't a contest because it's not like the Liberty didn't show up, but it wasn't like it was close. It wasn't back and forth. It wasn't like, oh, the Liberty might make this a thing. It was really like, okay, the Aces are preparing to sweep again. And that's no disrespect to the Liberty or anything, but the Aces are just that good. So they look like they're setting up to repeat. First game, they won with a score of 99-82. After they pulled away, second game, they won with a score of 104-76. And as respectful as they were in their post-game press conferences, if I'm being honest, they made it look easy. So unless home field or home court advantage plays that much of a role, I see the Aces doing the same thing in New York, especially after so many days of rest. Like their last game was on Wednesday. They don't play again until Sunday. So it'll be Sunday at 2 o'clock. Yeah, and I see the Aces taking it. Like if they don't, that's gonna be a hell of a game. Whatever happens during that game is gonna be really surprising. But in memory of last year's championship, I wanted to reshare this video of Asia Wilson because if you have no other reason to root for the Aces, it's to see stuff like this again. Last year, the Aces won the championship, and Asia Wilson, yeah, during the press conferences.
um Kind of man. How did that believe?
I'm so sorry. We get it back in blood. Just kidding. The shots will definitely be of tequila. And what was your second question? I couldn't hear with that.
I understand. How did that believe?
Too much champagne. But it's gonna be a meme
like
tomorrow.
6 bottles deep. But it's so I'm trying to be so serious.
but it's something that no one can ever take away from you. So
Four more in the room, and then we'll turn to Zoom. Last row center.
Hey, AJ, I saw that
Chelsea is
Del
like,
Toro
I
kind of
told
walked
you not
across
to
the
drink
court
right
and
now.
came to hug you.
character built for next year.
So, if you want to check out the whole video, it's on my Instagram. But if there's any reason to root for the Aces, it's to see that again. Um, so yeah, Sunday, 2 o'clock. Check out the Aces versus the Liberty and see if we get a little bit more of that, or see if Asia learns to kind of reel it in a little bit. All right, so next up, going right into it, we've got the game between the Colorado Buffaloes and the Stanford Cardinal. That is singular, not Cardinals. It's the Stanford Cardinal. So this is one that is a little bit more highly anticipated than it honestly should be. And mainly it's because Colorado has been kind of an up and down team. Not that they've like won games that they shouldn't have won, unless you count the very first one. Nobody expected them to win that. But then after people saw it, people had higher expectations. So not up and down in terms of wins and losses, but in terms of performance, after what they did against USC, a lot of people expected them to come out the following week and have like a really dominant performance. And it actually ended up being somewhat of a close game against ASU. Especially if you consider the fact that like it really did go down to the wire. On paper, it was about as close as it should be, but based on the expectations that were set after people saw what they did against USC, a lot of people felt like they underperformed, including Coach Prime. If you watch that Coach Prime press conference after the Colorado game against ASU, you saw like if you were to watch that press conference and not have known the results of the game, you would have thought that Colorado lost, honestly, because he seemed that upset. He even apologized to the press for being angry. That's how upset he was in that press conference. Because he was like, yeah, I'm happy about the win, but we played like hot garbage, and just basically went off on like all the things that the team needed to do better, which I get it. I just think a lot of coaches say that kind of thing for like the locker room and for practices, and he was like, nah, y'all are getting this attitude right now. This is how I feel right now. Um, so fast forward, and we've got this game against the Stanford Cardinal, which I think if people think of Colorado at their best, they think of a team that should absolutely win this game, right? But whenever we think about things like the slow starts and the struggles that they've had on defense, it kind of paints a little bit of a different picture. So both teams are unranked, which, as I said before, any unranked team I personally expect Colorado to beat. But if you look at some of the numbers behind it, you've got Colorado has been allowing 34.2 points per game, and the Cardinal have been allowing 34.6 points per game. So they're just about even there. And if you look at common opponents from the past, it doesn't really tell you much. So ironically, they both lost by a score of 42-6 to Oregon. But when it comes to their games against USC, Colorado had that close loss to USC. USC scored 48. Colorado put 41 on USC's defense. Whereas Stanford, when they played USC, it was 56-10 in favor of the Trojans. So I think even though that's like one example, I do think the game is ultimately going to come down to what caused that big differential between how they performed against USC. And by that, I mean a couple of things on the field and a couple of things off the field, if I'm being honest. But before I get too deep into that, I do want to talk a little bit about where Coach Prime has been in terms of his coaching of the team, because all season I've kind of talked about the development of the culture of the team, how it's impacted their performance and things of that nature. So I want to show a couple of clips to give a little context to where they are now, so that especially whenever I describe what it is in terms of off the field things, you have like a little bit of an idea of what I mean. So I'm gonna start with this one section in Coach Prime's recent press conference. I'm not gonna play the whole thing, but there's one section where they and I hate that he's wearing these glasses. They kind of make him look like Flavor Flav. But but there's this one section where he gets asked a question about something that he said in one of the Well Off Media videos that came out. Um, And then I'm going to show you something that he's referring to. This all sounds so cryptic, right? I'm going to show you this video. I'm going to show you what he's talking about in another video, and then I'm going to use that to explain what I mean. It'll all make sense in a few minutes. But let me just start with this video from Coach Prime's press conference. We'll watch just a couple of minutes of that, and then we'll go into the other video that he references when he's at this press conference.
Coach Matt Smith, 1043 The Fan.
Yes, sir.
We talked about the slow starts. We talked about it ad nauseum now.
Mhm.
It felt like on Saturday night there was a moment where you maybe just hit your breaking point, right? Maybe just boil over a little bit more. And then I was watching the video from yesterday, and you had the message to the team about personal accountability, cherishing the moment,
Right.
appreciating what you have. I was just wondering where the inspiration for that message came from.
That stuff comes to me in the morning, man. I'm here early in the morning. I'm in that chair, probably 4:55, anywhere from 4:55 to about 5:15, and I spend time with the Lord when I get here early in the mornings, and my messages derive from my thought process and just something that placed in my spirit. So that's where all that stuff comes from. Sometimes I don't even go in the meeting room thinking I'm going to give them a message, and it just happens. It just happens, and then God just impregnates me with something to give to them. I don't even think we put out the real. We haven't put out the real message from yesterday. We're gonna put that one out. That's a whole other message that you're probably gonna see today.
Just furthermore on those.
So he he was asked about the slow starts. He was asked about the slow starts for Colorado, which if you've been keeping up, although they've performed pretty well overall, especially in comparison to how a lot of people expected the team to do this year. If I remember correctly, I think the Las Vegas odds were that they would win 3 games this year, and they're already 4-2. And we're just getting to the midpoint of the season, right? But he was asked about the slow starts, which if you've watched every game, win or lose, they've started off slow. It's just that against certain teams, they've been able to pick it up and pull off a win. And against the ranked teams that they've played so far, Oregon and USC, it just hasn't quite gone that way. Obviously, because those teams, have a little bit more in terms of talent, experience, strategy, so on and so forth behind them. Um, but when he was like, "Yeah, we haven't even put out the real message," I was kind of like, I wonder what he means and why did he take that turn instead of just answering the question in terms of what he felt like needed to be addressed in order to resolve the issue with the slow starts. So even before I saw the other message, the way he answered that question kind of told me that there's still some cultural issues to work out. And I've been talking about the culture of this team since week one. When it comes to how new this roster is and them getting used to each other, I do think culture is a really, really big deal. It plays a really big role and it's a really big factor in how they're performing. I think it was Shador. I don't remember who it was, but somebody was asked about different guys stepping up every week. And whoever it was that answered the question made a comment about how they haven't been playing together very long. And so they don't really have a good idea of who the guy is. Like they know a little bit about each other's talent level, but in terms of who they expect to be the guy and the guy, whoever the guy is, expecting to be the guy, especially amidst injuries and them trying to figure out things every week and different things going on with the O line, which, if you're a football fan, you know how the performance of the O line can affect the performance of the quarterback and what the receivers get to do and not to do every week. So, between all those things, they're really figuring things out. But I think not having that in place is also related to and affecting the culture. I think it's kind of a cycle because, as much as we hate to admit it, if you've ever been on a team, the way that you perform and the way that you show up for a team tends to kind of have an effect on how people are treated and how people are perceived off the field, right? And so I think it's all connected. But anyway, with him being like, "Oh yeah, y'all haven't even seen the real message," of course I kept an eye out. I try to keep an eye on all the well-off media content anyway. It's kind of hard because they have the stuff on YouTube, right? But then there's different stuff that gets posted to like Deion Sanders' IG. There's different stuff that gets posted to like Deion Sanders Jr.'s Twitter. So sometimes it does get to be a lot to keep up with. But I did see. I'm going to show you a clip of a YouTube video, and I think the same clip was shared to Deion Sanders' Instagram. So if y'all keep up like I do, y'all might have seen this.
What you should already do because you're trying to invest in yourself so you could be something, so you could make some money, so you could get out of this situation. I don't think you understand that it's over, it's coming soon. It's over, it's coming soon. Like right now, you get tuition, right? They're ready to get tuition. They pay for your school and your education, correct? Right now, all your meals are taken care of, right? And you have a above card that you can get other meals, correct? What else is taken care of? What you paying for right now? What are y'all paying for? Personally? Rent, right? How much they give you to take care of that? Nice amount, right? So everything you pretty much need, not want. There's a difference between needs and want. Everything you need is taken care of, right? How long y'all think that's gonna last? It's gonna be over when? Soon. What you gonna do? What's the game plan?
Get more money.
How? That's easy said and done. How you gonna do that? No, straight up. How you do that? Graduate. Have a plan. What's the plan? One at a time. What's the plan? What's the plan? Yes, sir.
All right, so I'm going to stop right there to address some of the things that he's already been saying. So the video starts off, yeah, a nice amount. But the video starts off with him talking about, hey, y'all are mad at me because I'm trying to help y'all become men, and he starts talking to them about their responsibilities. And the message that he's sending is a good one. He's talking about all the things that are being taken care of for them while they're on campus and while they're playing for the Buffaloes, right? And he starts talking about how he wants them to have a plan because not everybody is going to go pro. Like, even if they were all good enough to go pro, like statistically, that's just not going to happen, right? Um, and so they're in the film room. Like, this is, if you watch all the videos, this is the room where they're normally like watching film, discussing plays. But he's talking about life. He's talking about accountability, which in some of the other videos, the word accountability came up in some of the other speeches that he gave the team. So just all through the week in all these videos, we're seeing things like this, where he's talking to them about having a plan for after college, where he's talking to them about accountability. And so what that kind of tells me is that he's trying to handle multiple things at a time. And I'm not saying that he's gonna, like disregard his responsibilities as a coach. But what I'm saying is that there's more going on than, okay, how do I fix these slow starts? He's focusing on more than that. And so anybody who's ever been in a position of leadership and has had to deal with stuff like that, when that happens, one of two things usually happens. Either the issues kind of get merged into one, and you try to send like the same message in terms of both, or one issue ends up taking time away from another. And so all I know is there's only so many hours in a day. He only has so many hours with these guys. So when it comes to sending the proper message in terms of what to do on the field and off the field, it just kind of all depends on where the focus is and if they're able to use the time efficiently that they have to dedicate towards both. But like I'm saying, there's a lot going on here in terms of culture. And him getting the culture right because of the way that he runs a team, him getting the culture right is essential for them to get it right on the field. So I'm not really mad at him for focusing on that on a short week, because that's like a lot of people's criticism. Like, okay, it's a short week, let's just focus on the game, get past it, and then worry about everything else later. But if you pay attention to Coach Prime, in terms of like what he's trying to do with this team, what he's trying to do with these young men, um, him raising, well, I shouldn't say raising, or could I say raising? Him leading them the right way, him helping them become, men in terms of like what he envisions for them is really important. So he is absolutely not going to ignore whatever's going on with the team. I have no idea what's going on that made him feel like that message was so relevant, especially during a short week. But whatever's going on, it's not going to overtake what's happening on the field. So I do believe that they'll get both taken care of, but I just can clearly see that there are some cultural issues and some other things that he's trying to address. So um, if it starts to seem like things aren't being taken care of on the field, well, we know there are some other things going on. I want to read a few of y'all's comments before I keep going. Let's see. Mills said, "New level, new devils, nice hair too." Thank you. I was so nervous about going live without my locks. It's been a while since I've worn this style, so thank you. I appreciate that. Blackula says raising is a fair term. Cool. I agree. I agree. Uh, let's see. Mill says Buffs and Lakers tonight to entertain my Friday night. Yes, I'll only be watching the Buffs, but yes. And Mills also says I want to see a blowout. I would love that. I would love that just to see the Buffaloes set themselves apart from some of the other teams in the Pac-12 because right now people are still kind of looking at their wins as a little bit of luck, especially because they started with slow starts and then kind of pulled it off in the end. But I'm gonna talk more about that in a second. We're gonna get back to some of the stuff that's actually happening on the field. Carlton, what's up? Good to see you. Carlton said accountability can cover multiple messages, taking care of your grades and graduating, and also studying film and doing your job on the field to help the team succeed is personal accountability. Yo, I 100% agree. And so that actually relates to some of the things that I think will make a difference in this game and some of the things that I think will determine whether or not we see a win or a loss or a blowout, like what me and Martin want to see. So there was this video that just came out like literally as I was preparing to go live, like earlier when I was like, yeah, I'm having a bunch of technical difficulties. This is the video that I watched while I was waiting for my laptop to restart over and over again. I just happened to check Well Off Media and they were like, oh yeah, new video. I think this video is from yesterday because it shows them at night and they start talking. At one point in the video, Coach Prime talks to them about their pregame routine, which I am glad that he talked to them about it because I mentioned that in my last video, right? I was like, yeah, they might want to look at their pregame routine and see how that's impacting what they do on the field whenever they first go out there. Because sometimes something as simple as that can affect whether or not you have a slow start or a good one. And I say simple, it's pregame routines, the night before routines, they can be simple, but uh, let's see, how do I want to phrase this? It's like what you do can be simple, but that doesn't mean the impact is small, you know? But anyway, I'm just going to show you like the last minute or so of this video. I hate the titles of these videos because they can be misleading. I still have no idea what the coaches are wearing on game day or what Shadur's new saying is. I think he said it in the middle of the video, but we can talk about that tomorrow. Oh, hold on. It's on mute.
Man. Yeah, show the wrist, man. Cheese. If you ain't got you one of these, you ain't got no cheese. Man. Get your money up, mustard. Catch up, mustard ass. But my 10 peaches came in. I'm trying to get like you a little bit. No, I'm trying to get like you.
So when he says get like you,
Appreciate you, fam.
I'm gonna see if I can find the beginning where Deion Sanders Jr. shows off his wrists.
Everybody else go to school, study.
Well, he did it at the end and at the beginning. Hold on.
You wearing no sleeves tomorrow too?
No shirt.
So you
I can't find it. Oh wait, no, I think this is.
They hitting.
Cute out.
Down on 20. We've been getting.
Thanks for being with me, guys. It even looks like Prime
Whatever
has a
you've
new
been doing
chain. Is
tonight.
that a new chain in this jacket? Jesus, everybody just got iced up this week.
no so hey so I'm gonna be out here no
shirt.
Nah. Looking my if I would have beat him in Madden again. So I feel bad. I knew it would have just fucked up his whole night if I would everything else. I feel bad. I knew it would have just fucked up his whole night if I would have beat him in Madden again.
So if you can see his wrist, he kind of shows it off in the beginning of the video.
I already skunked, bro.
So anyway, I say all that to say there was one video I did where I was like, yeah, I can't wait to see them like start rocking their jewelry again, you know, and I am excited for them. Don't get me wrong. But in a week where we're hearing all these messages about accountability and growing up and doing things the right way, and then it's just like, oh, and everybody has new jewelry. It just kind of makes me wonder if these things are connected. Um, so yeah, hopefully they go out and do their thing because if they don't, you know, the first thing everybody's gonna want to do is like, oh, look at all the chains they had on, and they're buying all this jewelry this week, and then they go out there and shit the bed because diamonds just make you do that or something. I don't know what people are thinking, but just seeing that made me think it might be connected. But anyway, as far as this game goes, like I said, when it comes to defense and specifically points allowed, Stanford and Colorado are about even. So this is one of the reasons why I really want Colorado to be locked in this week, because I think what we see on the field is going to come down to two main things. So, well, two main things on the field and two main things off the field. So on the field, it's going to be a matter of which defense can step up. Now, there's rumors that Travis Hunter might be back. I know Coach Prime was saying that he wanted him to wait until after the bye week, and that was kind of the understanding for a while. But there was a video that came out this week where Travis Hunter was at practice. He was active at practice, and he even got in a fight with Shador. Apparently, that happens all the time. It's a pretty funny video if you want to catch that one. Where I think it was Bucky was describing some of the fights. No, it was somebody else. I think it might have been Dylan. I don't know. I don't remember. But somebody was describing the fights that they get into on the field, and that was pretty funny. But it sounds like Travis Hunter will be back. So if he comes back, and if he's effective, and if he can be the kind of defensive leader that he was before, and I mean like cultural leader, because they did seem to have a little bit more of an identity when Travis was around. I definitely expect their defense to step up. If he's on the field, I'm just like, okay, no question, Colorado's got this. And Stanford, sorry, bad timing for you. Um, but with or without Travis, it is going to depend on which defense steps up. Because one thing that I can say about Colorado is even though they've had some struggles, I do feel like we haven't seen them at their best. It's not like we've seen them perform their best and they just can't seem to get it done. I really feel like they've just been trying to level up, trying to figure some things out, and that there's more in the tank when it comes to what they can do. Now, the other thing is, does Colorado fix the slow starts? So, two pretty simple things like, can the defense step up and do a little bit better? And can Colorado fix their slow starts? If Colorado can come out and play 4 quarters the way that they played sporadically in the ASU game and the way that they played in the last half of the USC game, if they can like take that version of the team and do that for 4 quarters, undoubtedly they will beat Stanford. Undoubtedly. And undoubtedly, they'll beat a lot of the other teams that are remaining on their schedule. It's just a matter of can they do it? So, all the things that they need to do, we've seen them do it. We've seen receivers find a way to just get open for Shador, whether you want to consider it a broken play or, just a design play that was well covered or whatever. We've seen different receivers step up. One day it's Horn, one day it's Weaver, one day it's Omarion. So they've got a stable of receivers that can all step up at any given time. They know how to get themselves open. Some of them are even solid when it comes to blocking. Sometimes, I guess I shouldn't call it solid if it's like sometimes. I've seen a couple of them block once or twice. But yeah, they're all good at playing various roles. They're all good at stepping up. It's just, can they put it all together at the right time and do it for 4 quarters? Um, Shador has a special level of toughness about him to get sacked and get hit as often as he does and still make plays, not only with his arm, but with his feet. If if his offensive line can step up just a little bit and minimize that just a little bit, it will do so much for the offense. Like they don't even have to be perfect, but if they could just improve by like 5 to 10%, it would make a world of difference. So I really do believe that they can step up and fix their slow starts. And even if they don't come out and they're like clicking on all cylinders and they're perfect, I do absolutely believe that they can start better than what they've seen. And if they do that, if they can improve just a little bit when it comes to their starts, I do believe that they won't have any problem with Stanford. And it'll be one of those games where by midway through the 3rd quarter, we'll be like, this game is over. Let's enjoy it. Let's watch the team celebrate. Let's watch Mata do his dances. Yeah, they'll pull out the chains and everything. It'll be awesome. Now, off the field, the concerns I have are one, are they preparing properly? We talked about, them being required to watch so much film. And then someone brought up the question of, do they know how to watch film? That's something that I still haven't picked up from watching the well-off media videos. I don't know if they've actually been taught for real how to watch film. I've been charging my earbuds all day, and for some reason I got a thing that said battery low. Like I said, Friday the 13th, lunar eclipse coming. If my sound gets weird, just let me know in the comments that my sound is weird, and I'll try to project. Um, and yeah, we'll just go from there. But yeah, battery low. So somebody let me know if I cut out. Um, but yeah, so are they preparing properly? It sounds like they've gotten more into watching film, but are they watching the right things? Do they know how to watch film? Do they know what they're watching for? Um, and then there's a question of how hungry are they and do they believe? Because here's the thing. Here's something else that sometimes happens with teams, especially when there's low expectations. It's like you start to get a little bit of success, and then some people start to relax a little bit. They start to get a little bit satisfied. Like, oh, I've got XYZ. I'm getting this much publicity. I'm getting this much attention. We've already won more games than Vegas predicted that we'd win. So, like, we're doing good. Everything else is lanyard. Everything else is extra, right? And now we know that's not true. Anybody who's been following Coach Prime, you know that is not aligned with his standards at all. You know, he wants every game to be a win. He doesn't care what Vegas says. He wants to see the best out of his team, right? But that doesn't mean that everybody's on the same page, or sometimes people even think they're on the same page and they're really not. Their belief isn't quite as strong, and their want to isn't quite as strong as other people's, you know? And so I think something else that we might not see from the videos, that we might not see in the interviews, is just how hungry are they and how bad do they want it? Do they want it bad enough to go above and beyond? Coach Prime is telling them to reevaluate their pregame routine, their night before routine. Do they actually want it bad enough to take those things seriously? Like, are they actually going to like step up and be like, no, we don't want to just win, we want to dominate? Or are they going to show up against Stanford and just kind of expect it to go like it's gone against other unranked teams? And even if they do start slow, they'll figure it out, you know? And I hope it's not the latter, because one thing that we know about other teams, especially the ones that are in conference, the ones that are in the Pac-12, is that they show up different against Colorado. The noise hasn't been quite as loud lately, but I feel like it's been pretty consistent that other teams, they want to beat Colorado specifically. If they don't beat nobody else the whole season, they want to beat Colorado. They want to make a point against Colorado. And I hope that just because we don't have any crazy sound bites from the coaches or any news clippings, that they don't think that Stanford isn't just like all these other teams who thinks they're overrated and who thinks they have what it takes to show them up and shut them up, and that they won't take it to another level, you know? So I hope they're aware of that. I hope they're cognizant of that. Um, I don't know, it's a few hours. If anybody wants to take this clip and play it for them, they've got a few hours before kickoff. So hopefully they have that understanding and they get that message, because it's true. Um, but yeah, so those are my two on the field and two off the field things. I'm gonna look at your comments and see if y'all had anything to add. God of Dots. What kind of dots? Says, hey everyone, prime message transcends the field always. Always. That's why I'm a Deion Sanders fan. I like Deion Sanders is somewhat of a philosopher, and I definitely subscribe to his philosophy. Carlton says, I know deferring the coin toss to the second half is strategic, but I wonder if Coach Prime has thought about taking the ball to get his offense on the field first. Hmm. I don't know. That hasn't been mentioned. Maybe somebody in the press can ask about that, and that could make a difference. Who knows? Um, let's see. Y'all are talking about basketball. Carlton said, "We appreciate you doing your best. I've seen Denver pregame show and Neely talking about players watching film with the coaches. Hopefully, they're being taught what to look for watching the film. I hope so too. I just know that from like working with other athletes in various aspects. Sometimes they literally don't know how to watch film or what to watch for. And then once they figure it out, it makes a huge difference. So, Denver pregame show. I'm gonna have to check that out. I hadn't heard of that one. All right. So on that note, while my laptop is still working, we're gonna go ahead and get into some Cowboys talk. Uh, Carlton, feel free to stick around. But yeah, so I haven't had a chance to talk about the Cowboys since Monday. It's been a hell of a week, just like I thought. So one thing I learned is that Cowboys fans are even more emotional than I thought, and it shows up in the worst fucking ways. And what I mean by that is just a lot of the reactions. Like, I understand being disappointed in the loss. Being disappointed in the loss and being disappointed in the way the team looked, all of that absolutely makes sense. But just some of the things that were being thrown out in terms of how people felt about the team just didn't make any sense. Like, people believing that the season is over. If you believe that the probability of them going as far as they said they would is less, okay, that's reasonable. But we're just going into week 6. They do have time to turn it around. Like that. That's factual. That's not people being. That's not me being a Daktivist or a Dak apologist or whatever the hell you want to call me, or a Dak lover, which I'm definitely not this week. Not at all. That's why it's Fangirl Friday, and you did not see any Dak Prescott posts from me. Um, but yeah, so whenever whenever it comes to just some of the stuff that people were saying, like the season's over, like no, like factually it is not. People wanting to see Trey Lance start, and I'm just like, what the hell do y'all expect that Trey Lance to do in that offense? Like, I don't know what people think Trey Lance is, but I'm like, there's a reason that he ended up with the Cowboys in the first place. There's a reason that he came over here and didn't start, or is not even like the second string quarterback. Like, he couldn't even take Cooper Rush's spot, and y'all are expecting him to take Dax and do what with it? But unsurprisingly, it's some of the same people who thought that the season was over who also want to see Trey Lance start, and they're like, let's see what he can do. And I'm like, how about let's try to salvage this season? Let's try to turn this ship around before we just give up. Like, putting Trey Lance in there, especially to start, is the equivalent of giving up, basically. But this is what happens when you're emotional. When you're emotional, you're not thinking logically, you're not thinking rationally. Yeah, yeah. I don't even have a word for some of the stuff that I heard from Cowboys fans. But yeah, it's getting a little bit ridiculous out there. And I think it was Will Steele who said something like, "Yo, if you really think the season is over, you should just hang it up, because it's really not healthy to feed into that energy every day." And that is factual. Like, there is really no point, no purpose into feeding in that kind of negativity every day if that's really how you feel. So it's just like, yo, if you think the season is over, go follow another team. When I first started this podcast, I followed so many teams because I was all about players. So I was following the New Orleans Saints because I grew up a Saints fan and I loved Alvin Kamara. I started following the Cowboys because of Ezekiel Elliott and CeeDee Lamb. Who else was I paying attention to? I was paying a lot of attention to Odell Beckham Jr. As a matter of fact, I remember like one of the big posts that we had that actually got really popular was a poll that we put out to see who our fan base thought was hotter between CeeDee Lamb and Odell Beckham Jr. So yeah, you got options. You got options. Jalen Hurts, if you're a fangirl like me, Jalen Hurts is really cute. If that does it for you, yeah, there's so many teams that you can follow. Like, just go do something else for a while and come back. We'll still be here. Um, Looking at the comments, y'all are still talking about basketball. Okay, have fun. Carlton said your laptop and earpiece is gonna die now. You know what? That would track. Don't wish that on me, Carlton. Don't do that. Um, but yeah, so I heard a lot of crazy things, but one thing that I didn't get to address actually did not come from the fan base. One of the things that I did not get to address actually came from Mike McCarthy himself. So when I went live on Monday, I had not watched the press conference from Mike McCarthy that day. I can't remember if it came out after I went live or if I just hadn't seen it, because I remember I woke up late that day and I had a lot to catch up on, and I wasn't even going to go live, but then I decided to do it anyway. So I don't remember why. I just remember I watched it after I'd gone live, and I was just like, fuck. I wish I had seen this before I did my live, because I had a lot to say after watching it. Um, and it just, I've been a big Mike McCarthy proponent for a long time. I've been like really just on the train of like, yeah, play call purpose. It's the thing. I love the way he talks about the players. Like, if you've been watching me since training camp, you know how much of a fan I am of his philosophy and the way he treats his players and his approach towards creating a certain culture in the locker room. But after this loss, If you heard my live or if you saw it, you know I didn't like what he had to say Sunday night. And so I think I was kind of hoping that he would come back on Monday and have something better to say, have a better way to say it. But it really felt like what he did have to say was worse. And so I just felt like there was only one way to address everything that's happening with Mike McCarthy right now. So here we go.
You let it out, honey. Put it in the book.
So Mike McCarthy is going into the burn book, or not Mike McCarthy, I should say. It's more so. I don't know where this video is saying. Hold on, give me 1 second, y'all. I knew something was going to go wrong. I knew something. Things were going way too well. Yes, put it in the book, and it is in the book. I just now have to find the book. Somebody put a question in the chat so I can answer it while I'm looking for this video file. Or I can just play that again. Let's see. Here we go. Ah, saved in the wrong folder. Carlton says ranking NFC: 1 49ers, 2 Eagles, 3 Lions, 4 Seahawks, 5 Saints. Dang, I want to argue with that so bad, but I really can't, especially since I haven't been paying that much attention to the Seahawks. The Saints have actually done better than I thought they would this year, and that's saying a lot. But you know what? I'm gonna let you have that one. This week, the Cowboys definitely deserve it. Martin said Mike McCarthy hid the book. Yes, he did. You know what? I feel like that's valid. We're gonna blame this on him, but I found it. All right, here we go. Mike McCarthy. Mike McCarthy. So, like I said, not so much Mike McCarthy in the burn book, but Mike McCarthy's quote, generic ass offense. And I'm going to tell you why I called it a generic ass offense. This actually wasn't a phrase that came from me. This was a phrase that came from an article that I read that actually talked about the offense and went in depth about why it wasn't working. But before we get into that, I'm going to let y'all hear from Mike McCarthy himself the words that like really set me off. And the thing about it is, I'm gonna just let y'all listen to it. I'm gonna let it play. I'm not even gonna stop because I want y'all to hear him basically ramble whenever he's asked about the identity of the offense. He was asked what the identity of the offense is, and he spent just about 2 minutes and not saying very much at all. So like, yes, this is a long clip, but I'm gonna just let it play because I want y'all to like. I just want y'all to hear it.
Calvin Watkins, Dallas Morning News. After 5 weeks, what's your offensive identity right now?
Identity? Yeah, I think just like anything. I mean, when I look at the 5 weeks of offense, you know, I just think that we've been in a different range of games. You know, I just because I was thinking about it even after I talked to the team last night, and it's been on my mind because I just believe in consistency and continuity is so important in everything you do in this league. Because it is difficult, and deal with the highs and lows. But when I look at our 5 games, we've had 3 lopsided wins. We had a tough game on the road that kind of got away from us that we fought back in, and then we had last night's game. So I think with that, the identity of the offense is clearly you want to have
The identity
some
of the offense is
balance, throughout how you play. Ball distribution, I think, has been 4 out of 5 games. I think we definitely have hit the mark. But I think when you get into games, I know when you get into these games, you got to get touches to certain individuals. So I think we clearly can be that. So yeah, I like a lot of things that we've done, outside of last night offensively. I mean, because outside of the red zone, we've definitely hit the mark. When we started this, this offensive approach back in April, I just think it's a matter of who do you want to be and who do you think you are. I coached a team for a lot of years that it was offensive driven, and but this team's about defense. Let's make no bones about it. And that's not a slight against the offense. We want to score as many points as everybody, and we're not, playing not to lose. So don't mix the message here. But we play to our defense. That's a strength of our team. And by doing that, the time of possession, taking care of the football, those are two things that were, I thought, improvement from past years. The first month clearly was not last night. You can't win games. You give the ball away, you can't win a game. I mean, let's be honest about that. So that's when the game got out of control there in the second half. So we got to take care of the ball. We got to continue to go the long way when we have to, but more importantly, I think we can do more as far as creating opportunities for big plays or getting the ball specifically where we want it to go.
Okay. So he's asked about, what is the identity of the offense? And he rambles and says several different things throughout his response that, honestly, in my opinion, none of them actually answered the question. And a couple of them actually gave me pause. So he talked about balance, he talked about consistency, which there is none, well, I shouldn't say none, but they haven't been consistent in their approach. So even that, I was just kind of like, okay, so why don't you create the balance? Why don't you create the consistency? And I thought about it, and I think that actually is what he's trying to do, but he's trying to do it by being so conservative, it's like a detriment to the team. Um, and I think a couple of people have said that the team looked like they're playing scared. To me, it actually doesn't look like fear. To me, it looks like anxiety. And so here's the difference. And actually, I'm gonna look up the definition of anxiety just so I can make sure that, y'all know how I like to do. I like to get y'all accurate information. So there's two different definitions of anxiety. So there's one that's like the general definition that people just kind of use when they're talking in passing, and then there's an actual psychiatric definition. So the general definition is a feeling of worry, nervousness, unease, uh, or unease, typically about an imminent event or something with an uncertain outcome. And the psychiatric definition is a mental condition characterized by excessive apprehensiveness about real or perceived threats, typically leading to avoidance behaviors and often physical symptoms such as increased heart rate and muscle tension. So, if we take out that whole section about physical symptoms and we just focus on the avoidance behaviors, if we just focus on the part of the layman's definition that talks about that worry about an imminent event, that's what I get from the way the play calling has gone this season. Because it seems like there's a lot of worry about Dak Prescott's interceptions, and that doesn't necessarily need to be the case. Like, did we expect Dak Prescott to do better? Yes. Were we hoping that an offense would be created that would help him do better? Yes. But does the focus of the whole offense need to be that? No, like I feel like that should be like maybe an element of the offense. Like, okay, let's see what we can do to minimize this. But I don't think that should be the focus because if you think about it, it wasn't exactly the issue that a lot of people played it up to be. So the article that I'm referring to, whenever I said, the generic ass offense was actually a quote. The article that I'm referring to is an article called "The Dallas Cowboys Offense is Broken. Is Mike McCarthy capable of fixing it?" And it was written by Stephen Ruiz for The Ringer on October 12th. And one of the things that it mentions in that article is that Dak has thrown an interception of 2% of his career passes, which is the same as Joe Burrow, and it's just behind Tom Brady and Patrick Mahomes. And before the 2023 season, Dak averaged 8.3 picks per season. Now, a lot of fans of the Dallas Cowboys, they kind of knew that that was the case. Maybe not the exact number, but if you've been observing Dak Prescott even casually, but just consistently, you knew his interceptions weren't really a problem until the 2023 season, and they became a big problem. So with that said, to me, was that, okay, this is something that he can probably, just fix on his own just by working a little bit during the offseason. We don't need to build an entire offense around focusing on this one issue, especially if it means being so, and people have been using the word conservative, but I'm going to call it apprehensive because I think that goes along with what we've been seeing. I think we've been seeing a lot of apprehension. We've been seeing a lot of hesitation in terms of just opening up the offense. And I don't think it's actually done the offense any good, honestly. Um, and so it's just like when you think about the fact that last season there were games that Dak Prescott won, even though he had multiple picks. Um, and even though he had an interception problem, they still went 12-5. They still went to the playoffs. And so when we look at that playoff game that they lost, the divisional round, like it's easy to point to the picks as quote unquote the reason that they lost. But what was something else a lot of people were saying after that game? A lot of people were saying like, oh, after Tony Pollard went down, we didn't have a plan. We didn't adjust. We didn't have anything that we could do, right? So what that tells me is that as much as people like to point to the interceptions as the problem, there was actually more than one problem. And one of the problems was the inability to adjust. In other words, the play calling was a problem. Um, and it's not like we didn't have capable weapons on the field. It's that they weren't being used in a way, they weren't being schemed open in the right way to actually make an impact. The Cowboys only lost that game by 7 points. You don't think that using CeeDee Lamb a little bit better, using Ezekiel Elliott a little bit better, could have made up that difference, could have kept the offense on the field a little bit longer? So, yeah, I say that to say, like I said, by all means, don't bypass the interceptions, but I think to focus on them to the point where you create this, as it says, generic ass offense isn't exactly the way to go. Martin says that's the perfect word. I'm assuming you're talking about apprehension. So some of the other things that are stated in this particular article are one, that the interceptions came as a result of being aggressive to stay on the field. So this is further illuminated by the fact that Dak Prescott, a lot of his interceptions came on third downs. And there was a graphic, and if y'all want to see this graphic, let me know. I'll try to share my screen. But I'll tell you what the graphic says. It is from Cowboy Stats and Graphics, Cowboy Stats on X. And so it says half of Dak Prescott's picks this year occurred on third down. At the same time, few QBs got the ball to more valuable areas on third down, or achieved a higher third down conversion rate, or had a lower third down sack rate. So what that says is that, like, yeah, he was taking risks on third down to try to make something happen for the offense, and a lot of those risks paid off. But then at the same time, a lot of them didn't, so it just ended up being a numbers game. Something else mentioned in this article is that Dak Prescott was ranked 13th in turnover worthy plays, but 88% of those plays actually became turnovers compared to the league average of 77%. So he's like right in the middle there when it comes to turnover worthy plays. Just for whatever reason, the actual turnovers ended up being higher than the league average. That's one of those things that I say, hey, do with that information what you will. I know some people will hear those numbers and it doesn't mean shit to them. And then there are some people who will say, like, you know what, that's actually relevant to some of the things I've been thinking about. So do with that information what you will. Something else this particular article talks about is that on rundowns, which is according to True Media, first or second in medium. So that's what they refer to as a rundown. They said Dak's on target throw rate is 70.9%, which is fifth in the NFL. But in both yards and EPA per dropback on those, he ranks 20th. Overall, Dak ranks 11th in EPA per dropback. But if you remove the passes that are more dependent on play design, like play action passes and screen passes, he jumps to fifth. So once again, that's another one of those pieces of information that it's like, okay, do with this information what you will. But the reason why I'm pointing these things out is because even if you don't want to look at these numbers and take them at face value as saying that Dak isn't the problem, what we're seeing is a pattern where if you account for play calling, Dak actually looks better than he does whenever you include play calling in the statistics. That's all I'm saying. It just seems that, like, if the play calling were different, if the play design were different, a lot of these numbers, a lot of these stats would look different. And it's reasonable to believe that if the stats and the numbers were different, the results might be different. So yeah, and I mean the 49ers are a good team. I'm not necessarily saying that like this would have made the difference between a win or a loss. But like I said going into that game, I was of the mindset that if the Cowboys did lose, it would be close. That is not at all what happened. So anyway, those are just some things that I haven't had the opportunity to address because unlike a lot of my peers, I don't go live every day. So my bad to the people who are like, are we still talking about this? Yes, we are, because Mike McCarthy's generic ass offense is in the burn book. But with so many people talking about, okay, this is exactly what Mike McCarthy was doing before he left Green Bay. It did kind of get me to go look back at Green Bay. And while I'm not such an X's and O's person that I can like really break down all these plays and tell you what exactly is the same, when I did start looking at footage from Green Bay, and the footage on the left is from December 2nd, 2018. This was the day Mike McCarthy got fired. Mike McCarthy got fired 3 hours after this game ended. The footage on the right is from this past Sunday, week 5 against the 49ers. And I couldn't help but notice the similarities in terms of the formations, in terms of the lack of motion, in terms of the hesitance to go deep down the field unless the quarterback was actually desperate. Um, and so just looking at it from a surface level that way, the people who are like, oh, yeah, this looks like exactly what Mike McCarthy was doing in 2018, from looking at it that way, I can't really blame them. I can't really argue with them on that because it, in fact, does. Um, and so one of the things that I was thinking about when I saw that, I was just like, okay, well, if Dak's interceptions are the reason that Mike McCarthy is calling plays like that this season, then what the fuck was the excuse in 2018? Because Aaron Rodgers didn't have that problem, you know? So as much as we may want to say, like, okay, he's got to do what he's got to do because Dak is who he is, it really sounds like this might be more of a situation where Mike McCarthy just is. Um, and I just heard my earbud die. So somebody tell me in the chat if y'all can still hear me. I know great. But like I said, I'm trying to project, and I don't think there's like a lot of noise in here. So just let me know. Um, but yeah, so I'm just wondering, like, okay, what's the excuse? What was the excuse in 2018? Because unless you point to the same thing, I'm not inclined to believe that Dak's interceptions are a good reason to be this apprehensive and to play this scared and to misuse the weapons in the way that they're being misused. Um, and so just a few fun facts from that particular season. Let's see. So that year, if the goal indeed was to prevent Aaron Rodgers from turning the ball over, he was successful in that. Aaron Rodgers only had 2 interceptions that season, but the team went 6-9-1. And I don't know about y'all, but I would trade 12-5 with 15 interceptions for 6-9-1 any day. And not only that, but Aaron Rodgers was sacked. Hold on, I forgot the number already. Martin, you might remember because I think I texted you about it earlier. Was it 49 times? Yeah, Aaron Rodgers was sacked 49 times that season. 49 times. And so you might be wondering, like, dang, is Dak going to get sacked 49 times? I don't know. Dak has already been sacked 9 times so far this season, which puts him on pace to end up by, like, if it stays at this pace, puts him on pace to get sacked about 31 times this season, which is about 18 away from 49. So it's not exactly close, but he already has 4 interceptions, which is double what Aaron Rodgers had the whole season. An X's and O's person, not such a stats person that I'm like, oh yeah, this is definitely going to do this, and doing the whole DVOA thing and all that bullshit to figure out like in depth what this actually means. But what I can tell you is from looking at those numbers, if someone were to draw the conclusion that the way this offense is designed, it kind of stifles production. It's more of a liability than anything. And it puts the quarterback in a situation where they're kind of between a rock and a hard place, where they have to choose between maybe getting sacked or making a bad pass. And that's kind of the options that they're stuck with in a lot of situations. Looking at those numbers, I couldn't really blame a person for coming to that conclusion. So I'll just put it that way. I'm not saying that is a conclusion or it's the right one. I'm just saying if someone were to say that, they have ground to stand on just from looking at that. Now, the last thing that Mike McCarthy said in his press conference was, or not the last thing, but kind of the last overall point that he made, He said that he was playing to the strengths of the defense. And this bothered me for two reasons. One, the question was about the identity of the offense. Now, if you wanted to ask about the identity of the team, even though I still would have a problem with that answer, I would say that playing to the strengths of your defense still is kind of lopsided, you know? But when you're asked specifically about the identity of the offense, and the question is, oh, we're playing to the identity of the defense, that's a problem. That's a problem for two reasons. One, I just don't feel like that should be the identity of the offense. To me, that's like saying, like, you know, if I'm in a relationship and somebody says, like, who are you? What do you do? And I start talking about my partner, and I'm gonna be like, you're not your own person. Like, yes, like you and your partner should by all means build a life together, have, you know, goals that align with one another, all that. But like y'all should still be your own person, you know? So even if you're playing complementary football and that's your thing, your offense should still have its own identity. Like there should be something that you can say about your offense that says, this is what we do. This is how we see success. This is how we experience success. This is what everybody can expect. Um, when Deion Sanders went on Inside the NFL with Ryan Clark earlier this week, one of the things he said about the 49ers, he said, the 49ers have dudes that you know what to expect from them every Sunday. And then he followed that up by saying, well, the Cowboys, they have dudes that are supposed to be dogs, but you know. And if you follow me on Twitter, you saw that clip and you saw how hurt I was by it. This has been a whole week of like my faves attacking my faves. Like I love Coach Prime, and so to hear him talk about the Cowboys that way, I'm just like, so conflicted. But I couldn't say that he was wrong based on what he was talking about. He was talking specifically about Week 5, and it was just hard to argue with, you know. Um, but yeah, going back to the offense's identity being to play to the strengths of the defense, I feel like even if you do want to play to the strengths of your defense, one thing that we figured out about this defense is that, you know, whenever they have an opportunity to do what they do with the pass rush, that's when they're at their best, you know? So I feel like one of the best things that you can do is to make sure that your offense is productive, to make sure that your offense keeps the lead. Scoring points is the offense's job. So you need to figure out how to do that with what you have and make that the identity. And so for him to say, like, our identity is playing to the strengths of the defense, it felt like a cop out. It really felt like a cop out. And so I was really disappointed in that. And it just, to me, it just didn't bode well for Monday. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, I just didn't like those answers. I didn't like a lot of what McCarthy had to say. I really didn't like what I saw when I went back and looked at the similarities between Green Bay's offense and what we saw on the field on Week 5. And so, sorry, laptop's doing things again, but we're back. That's why Mike McCarthy's generic ass offense ended up in the burn book this week. And to end this all off, I'm just gonna read the one little paragraph from the end where well, actually it wasn't even the end. I think it was the middle of this article where he says this. Let's see if I can find it. He says, if the Cowboys are going to fix their offensive issues, they should focus on early downs, which is where we've seen the biggest change in play calling. McCarthy has done away with all the wacky stuff Moore used to do, like funky backfield sets, 6 offensive linemen, personnel groupings, pre-snap shifts, and motion in the passing game, and overloaded formations that put 3 or 4 receivers to one side of the field. That means more static and symmetrical formations, which we saw in both sides of that footage, with half-field concepts to either side. It's a generic ass offense. It's an NCAA football 14 ass offense. It's like someone searched football play on Getty Images and turned the results into a playbook. So thank you, Mr. Ruiz, for such a heartfelt message about this. I'm gonna go ahead and shut this down. Remove. So yeah, there we go. All right, I'm gonna look at y'all's comments real quick, and then we'll keep going with a couple of other things about the Cowboys for Monday. Carlton said, unfortunately, in 2023, today's NFL is not yesterday's NFL of Belichick, Sean Payton, and McCarthy. Agreed. Carlton also said, you're right about everything you are saying, but when your defense is playing dominant like they have in 3 games, but not in the 2 losses, when the running game is clicking, Dak is not throwing much. This is true. Carlton also believes that McCarthy doesn't trust Dak I don't think Dak is untrustworthy though. I don't think he's perfect, but I also think that some of the things that make other teams consistent don't apply to the Dallas Cowboys. Like one of the things that I noticed watching the Chiefs last night, for example, um, the announcers and the halftime commentators, they all talked about the fact that it didn't look like Patrick Mahomes was really on top of his game. As a matter of fact, on Amazon Prime, they have simulcast. So they have different broadcasts. And one of the broadcasts was like LeBron James and his shop crew when they had guests. Kiki Palmer was one of the guests. And Kiki Palmer, by her own admission, doesn't really get into football, but she likes to go to like sports parties because she likes the vibe. And so she's asking LeBron James and Maverick Carter about, different things about the game. And, they're talking to her about the fact that Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs weren't really on top of it, but they were still winning. Um, and one of the reasons for that was one of the things that you can count on with the Chiefs is that Travis Kelce and Patrick Mahomes are going to have some level of chemistry. And there were several times last night where Travis Kelce just found a soft spot in the defense and got open. It was like he knew, yo, I haven't heard a whistle yet. I haven't heard sounds that make me think the pass has gotten off yet. Let me get open for my QB. He just knew that that was something that he had to do. And props to Denver, their defense actually tried really hard to keep them in the game. I think Russell Wilson only passed for like something like 97 yards. That might be wrong, but it was a really low number. But yeah, Denver's defense was actually doing a pretty solid job. Got a couple of picks. Definitely threw Mahomes' timing off. Made him have to think a little bit, made him have to scramble a good bit. But at the end of the day, Travis Kelce was like, okay, you out here trying, I'm gonna do my job and I'm just going to like fuck a route. I'm gonna get open. That's what Kelce did several times. I can't think of anybody in the Cowboys offense who really does that. Now, CD wanted to try that. This weekend would be, or not this weekend, Monday would be the day to do it, right? Because regardless of what's been put on film, I just don't see the Chargers playing as much man as the 49ers did, or at least not successfully. They might try because they've seen it, but I don't see them being nearly as successful at it. So what we'll probably see is a lot of cover two and a lot of cover four, like what we've seen. Like if you've watched a little bit of Chargers film, I've watched a little bit of Chargers film. So we'll probably see a lot of that. I've heard a few people say that, they expect the Cowboys to attack the middle of the field because of that. So if CD ever did want to try his hand at pulling a Travis Kelce and being like, I'm going to just find a soft spot in the defense and get open regardless of whatever the hell else is going on, it would be the day to do it. Assuming that's within the bounds of what's allowed with this offense, because that's still not 100% clear. But my whole point was we haven't really seen anything like that happen with the Cowboys. So when we're talking about the need for consistency, when we're talking about the need for an identity, when you look at other teams that do kind of have a little bit more consistency and an identity, they're doing things like that. It's not that they literally show up and dominate every game. It's that they have certain solid principles to where even when they show up and they're not dominating, they can still rely on those things. Carlton said, you don't think Dak is untrustworthy, and I get it, but McCarthy sees Dak in practice. Okay, that's fair. Just like the comment you made about Trey Lance and not being ready to play, your emotions are taking over. Hey, get out of here with that. Nobody asked you all that. No. So the reason why I said that I don't think Dak is untrustworthy is because basically the issues that I've seen him have, I don't think are so bad that they need to be reined in that hard. That's what I'm saying. So, I mean, maybe the answer is somewhere in the middle. Maybe I shouldn't say that it's not that he's untrustworthy, but he's not so untrustworthy that I think it justifies um, just dampening the offense this way and having such a generic and basic offense. That's really what I'm saying. So yeah, maybe there are certain things about Dak that Mike McCarthy doesn't trust. Even with the whole idea of Dak being able to take the reins of the offense. That's something that we were told during the offseason that he'd be allowed to do. But if I'm being honest, none of these games really look like something that I would think Dak Prescott would call. But we've only seen Dak Prescott call one game, and it was when Will Greer was quarterbacking in game 3 of the preseason. And even after that game, Dak said himself that he called the game the way that he did because the defense was only giving him like 3 looks. So Dak himself was kind of like, oh well, yeah, that was a fun and exciting game to watch, but like it was easy to call because yada yada yada. So Carlton, you do have a point. Maybe there are some things that are showing up in practice. Maybe there's some things being said in meetings that cause Mike McCarthy to hesitate a little bit. Um, but yeah, I'll reserve further comment on that until Monday. Like let's wait until after the bye week and we'll continue this discussion. Honestly, I'm just glad that you're sticking around, Carlton. Thank you for staying and talking with us. Um, Martin said he's not Carlton. Trey is literally in QB school at the moment and learning the playbook. We're fixing Trey from the ground up. Um, Carlton said, just observant, man. Much respect. Now, leave you alone for today. Getting my popcorn ready for Colorado. Yes, I need to as well. I don't know what kind of snacks I'm having for Colorado, but after the week I've had, it needs to be something good. Maybe since they're the Buffaloes, I might get some buffalo wings. I want to treat myself today. Like I literally just want to like chill and pour myself a drink and have some good snacks, some good food, and watch this game because it's been y'all have no idea. Y'all have no idea. I'm happy that this live stream is even still going on because I was just sure my laptop by now would have just been like, you know what, fuck you and your live stream. I'm not doing this today. Um, but yeah, so as far as some of the other things that are being talked about for Monday, it's possible that we'll have a new linebacker, and I want to make sure that I'm saying his name right. It's Rashawn. It's not Rashad, right? It's Rashawn Evans, right? Um, so a couple of people have asked the question of like, okay, why was this guy still available? And if I had to guess, based on what I've seen, it just might be that some teams are looking for a certain type of linebacker, and he just might not have been the type of linebacker that they were looking for. Um, the whole sideline to sideline thing is really popular. Maybe people just think like that's the way to win, and they just didn't value him. As far as I'm concerned, though, I think that he's a good fit based on what we have and what I think he'll be expected to do because he has like a nice solid presence, like, very physical dude. So I think, if you set him up behind a solid defensive line and just be like, yo, just take care of this area. We just need you to be a strong physical dude right here. He's definitely capable of doing that. Plus, he's got experience. He's a vet, which in every other position, we've seen how veteran experience has kind of helped the younger guys along. So I'm as excited about it as I can be about an acquisition that I don't know that much about and have watched a few minutes of film on. What I did see, I like. And I'm really just glad they got somebody in there because that linebacker room is looking a little bit thin. As far as Micah playing linebacker, I'm excited about that because even in the 49ers game, as many things as that went wrong, one of the things that did go well was that, like, I actually thought that when Micah was at linebacker, he actually did some good things there. He was actually impactful there. And so with Micah saying he's off the sack wave, he's on the impact wave this season. I do feel like putting him there is a way for him to make an impact. So I'm excited about all of that. And as far as the speculation that, Kellen being really familiar with these players having an impact, or even Simi being so familiar with this offense having an impact on the game, I think that we've seen enough examples this season, not only for the Cowboys, but with teams around the league, that even if you have somebody in the building who knows XYZ about your scheme, about your offense, about your players, it doesn't guarantee anything. One, just who has the best dudes is definitely something that comes into play. There are a lot of situations where it just comes down to, can you beat your dude? Can you do your job against the dude who's trying to do his job? And I think that can apply regardless of what some people know about you and what you do. Taking the Chiefs again for an example, not saying that Denver knew anything about what they were going to do, but Denver kind of threw Patrick Mahomes off his game a little bit. Anybody who was watching knew Patrick Mahomes wasn't necessarily playing his best. He had to kind of figure some things out. But that was the thing. He figured some things out. And it wasn't the most dominant win. It wasn't a win that, based on the point spread, really represents the disparity that actually exists between the Chiefs and the Broncos as teams, right? From looking at that score alone, you would think they were a lot closer. But at the end of the day, the Chiefs did what they needed to do to get the W. And that's the thing. And so sometimes, even with information, sometimes even with dudes who can do their job, sometimes it just comes down to what I call the most important rule in the game of football that people seem to forget. Like, out of, all the talks about scheme and strategy and who knows this and who's familiar with that person and so on and so forth. At the end of the day, the most important rule of the game in the game of football is whichever team has the most points at the end of the game wins. That's it. That's the thing that you got to pay attention to. And honestly, that's the thing that Mike McCarthy needs to pay attention to more than anything. Like, if we're talking about play call purpose, the purpose needs to be to win. And me personally, I would rather see Dak Prescott throw 1 or 2 picks and get a win than throw 3 picks and the offense look like shit for 4 quarters. So I feel like we just need to keep that top of mind and remember what the goal is and not be so apprehensive, not be so anxious about things like picks and what that might cause, because honestly, it just doesn't seem to be doing us any good. Any questions? Because that's really all I have to say. I'll say this: games are weird this weekend. So if you've been watching me for the past few weeks, I've been trying to stick to the schedule where I talk about the weekend preview on Friday, and then on Sunday mornings I do a Cowboys preview and a college recap. But this weekend we've got Buffs are tonight at 9 o'clock Central. We've got USC tomorrow, which is another team that I follow because I heart Caleb Williams. And then the Cowboys are on Monday. So weird ass schedule. Keep your notifications turned on because, like I keep saying, I have a full-time job. I work. So as much as I would love to say, like, yeah, I'm gonna go live on Saturday morning and Sunday morning and Monday morning and Tuesday morning. No, I gotta work. I got clients that expect to see me and they want me to be alert and doing my job. Um, so after the game today, I probably will go live tomorrow. I keep telling myself I want to wait till Sunday and talk about the Trojans and the Buffaloes in one live, but I'm more likely, just me knowing me, I'm more likely to get really excited about Colorado and then go live and talk to them tomorrow and then just be like, the Trojans won again because that's what they do, and then just not talk about them until I talk about the Cowboys again. If I'm being honest, there's a good chance that that's how it might go. So yeah, turn your notifications on. You'll probably hear from me tomorrow. If you're watching Colorado tonight, definitely go on Twitter, go on X, whatever you want to call it. I'm not picky. And tweet with me. I like to post clips. I like to talk about the guys and what's going on and what I like and what I don't like. So yeah. Martin says, shout out to Michael McCorkle Jones. Okay. I don't know what y'all be talking about in this chat. It's not that many of y'all, but y'all have a good time, and I appreciate that. So yeah, on that note, did I cover everything? I talked about Micah. I talked about Mike McCarthy at length. I talked about the new linebacker. I talked about Kellen Moore, which there isn't much to say about that. Yeah. Yeah, I think I got everything. I do have a lot more on my mind, but I don't want to put too much out there. I'm gonna say this. Actually, I'm gonna say this one last thing because it's something that I forgot to mention during the burn book segment. As a matter of fact, let me bring this back up. I'm gonna reopen the burn book to share this with you guys. So another really Martin, you can read my mind. I swear to God, you can read my mind. But yeah, CD.
Calvin Watkins, Dallas Morning News. After 5 weeks.
So one of my earbuds is working, one of them is not. But yeah, so one of the other issues that I have with the way things have been going is that I was a CD Lamb fan before I was a Cowboys fan. And I was a Dak Prescott fan before I was a Mike McCarthy fan. And so, like, one of the biggest issues that I had is that the way things are going is making some of my favorite players look bad, especially CD. And I think he deserves better. And he took a lot of heat this week for being emotional, for responding to, I guess, his perception of who knows what he's frustrated by, like as in detail. Like, we can all speculate about several things that he might be frustrated by, judging by his body language at the end of plays and off to the sideline, so on and so forth. but we really don't know the details. As Carlton said a second ago, the same way that Mike McCarthy might see certain things in practice, CD might be seeing certain things in practice and think certain things are taken care of that aren't actually being taken care of. They might be having conversations on the sideline that aren't leading to what he's expecting on the field. We have no idea. So we can assume that he's not getting the ball and he's being a diva, but we really don't know, right? But what we do know is that I think I read something going off the top of my head here. I think I read something that said he was like a 39th in threat rate. Let me see if I can find it real quick because I think it was a tweet that I bookmarked. Oh yeah, CeeDee Lamb ranks 39th among wide receivers in threat rate, which is a percentage of targets per receiving snaps. That's just not going to cut it from one of the 10 best wide receivers in the league. And this was a tweet by John Owning. And I 100% agree. I 100% agree. I do think whenever it comes to establishing an identity, the same way that, we've seen other, like in dominant offenses, other quarterbacks really have good chemistry with their favorite target. We have yet to see that with the Cowboys. And so when Mike McCarthy and Jerry Jones talk about, oh, well, we got to spread the ball around and yada, 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 um, I would really like to hear them talk more about doing more with one of the offense's best weapons. And it kind of really makes me rethink what Mike McCarthy was talking about when he said that he wanted to take care of the ball. When he said during the offseason that he wanted to focus on taking care of the ball, I didn't think that meant being apprehensive. I didn't think that meant watering down the offense. But it's kind of like have you ever been in a relationship with somebody and then it's like they say something like when you first start dating and you don't really like think too much about it. You're just kind of like, oh, whatever. And then you kind of get into it. And then it's just like, you realize, oh, that's what they were saying when you said that. That's why their ex said XYZ about them. That's kind of how I started to look at the phrase taking care of the ball this week and be like, that's why so many Packers fans were saying XYZ about Mike McCarthy, you know? And so there were some things said I think it was in that article. Let's see if I can find the area. Actually, if I do control F, I can probably find it real quick. Ruiz said, but some, namely Rodgers, have questioned whether McCarthy is capable of doing that. After McCarthy's departure from Green Bay, it came out that Rodgers reportedly didn't think too highly of his old coach's football acumen. According to Bleacher Report's Tyler Dunn, the Packers quarterback often complained that Mike McCarthy called the wrong plays at the wrong time and with the wrong personnel, and far too often it was up to Rodgers to bail him out. He'd say Mike has one of the lowest IQs, if not the lowest IQ of any coach he's ever had, a source told Dunn in 2019. So if you've been watching the show for a long time, we made a rule, me and my co-host who hasn't been around, we made a rule a long time ago that we don't talk about Aaron Rodgers because Aaron Rodgers is an asshole. And so I say that to say, take that quote with a grain of salt. But it just doesn't, for someone to be so bold to like literally say that you have like the lowest IQ, that just says a lot, and I think I should probably leave it at that because I don't want to jinx Monday night. I also don't want to say things that I can't walk back before Monday night. So I'm gonna just say, like, I want to see CD do better. Like, I do feel like he deserves to be celebrated. He deserves to get the ball more. He deserves to be the type of person that this offense can be built around in a lot of ways. And I just don't know how they're gonna make that happen. So yeah. I would say on that note, that's all I have to say. Sorry to complain so much. I would have loved to talk about the Chargers more, but like I said, I haven't gone live since Monday, so there was just a lot that I felt like I had to get off my chest. So thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Join me on Twitter to talk about the Buffaloes tonight, and I'll see y'all in the morning for the recap. And on that note, I'm Bitch 2, and I'm out. Oh, wait. Hey, JB, you just popped in. I hope you catch the replay. And anybody who's watching, please like and subscribe if you haven't, and please share this episode if you enjoyed it. But yeah, on that note, I'm out.